This produces half a liter of water every night. No electricity, no plumbing, no connection to the grid, just a mesh of 5 and air. And the Incas knew this 500 years ago. Today, you're going to learn how to extract drinking water directly from the atmosphere with your own hands. And when you finish, you will understand why this technology disappeared when modern plumbing arrived. This is what you need: a 6 by 6 feet shade mesh, the kind used to give shade to plants, 4 1-inch PVC pipes for the frame, plastic zip ties, the ones normally used for cables, a plastic gutter to collect the water at the bottom, bricks or stones for the angle that you probably already have. The total cost, and with this you are going to produce clean water every night indefinitely, without depending on anyone. But before you start hanging meshes expecting miracles, you need to understand exactly what is happening here. Because if you don't understand the physics, you will make this mistake everyone makes, and your collector will not produce a single drop. This is called atmospheric condensation. The atmosphere contains approximately 37 trillion gallons of fresh water floating in the form of invisible vapor. That vapor is up there right now, above your head, even in the driest desert. You don't see it because it is vapor, water molecules dispersed among air molecules, but it is there available, waiting. The principle is called the dew point. It is the temperature at which air can no longer hold all its vapor and begins to condense into liquid. Think of it like saturation. Warm air can hold more vapor than cold air, just like hot water can dissolve more sugar. When humid air hits a surface that is at or below the dew point temperature, the vapor condenses immediately, turns into liquid, and drips, and you can collect those drops. It is exactly the same science you see in a glass of cold water in summer. You take a glass out of the fridge, fill it with ice water. In 2 minutes, the outside of the glass is covered with drops that seem to sweat. That water does not come from inside the glass. It did not magically seep through the glass. It comes from the air surrounding the cold glass. The glass cools the air around it below the dew point of that room, and the vapor instantly condenses into visible drops, or the dew on grass in the morning. You go out early and the grass is completely soaked. It didn't rain during the night. Where did it come from? From the air. The grass cools faster than the air during the night because it radiates heat into the clear sky. It acts like a cold surface where vapor from the air deposits and forms droplets. What we are going to build is basically that same process, but on an industrial scale. A large and efficient surface that traps vapor from the air and turns it into liquid water that you can collect in a container. And this is where the story becomes fascinating, and you realize that this is not new. This technology is not new or remotely modern. The Incas, 500 years ago, built massive stone structures in the mountains of the Andes, specifically designed to condense the fog that rose from the Pacific. 10-meter-high rock walls perfectly oriented toward the prevailing wind that trapped low clouds. The water condensed on the cold stones during the night, ran through channels carved in the rock, and fed their agricultural terraces at 3,000 meters of altitude. Entire cities in the mountains lived exclusively on fog water, without nearby rivers or lakes. In the Canary Islands, specifically in Tenerife and La Palma, fog-catching nets have been used for generations, not as an experiment, but as real infrastructure. Large vertical meshes of 20 by 30 meters installed on hills facing the Atlantic Ocean. When sea fog passes through them at night, they literally produce thousands of liters per day. There are documented records of individual collectors producing 15,000 liters in a single night of dense fog, enough to supply 50 families. And the most impressive of all, the thing that really makes you question what else we have forgotten. Israeli archaeologists discovered wells in the Negev Desert from the Bronze Age 3,500 years ago. For decades, they studied them thinking they were just cisterns to store rainwater. But the Negev is a desert. It rains 5 millimeters per year. There is not enough rain to fill any cistern. They were completely wrong about their function. They were active dew collectors, intricately designed stone structures to maximize the cold surface exposed to the night air. The stones cooled during the night under the clear desert sky. Humid air from the Mediterranean flowed inland and condensed on the cold stones all night. The water dripped into carved channels, flowed into a central well. An entire family with livestock and everything lived exclusively on the water that this system condensed every night in the desert without rain, just physics. So why does no one do this anymore? Why didn't they teach you this in school? Why is it not in basic survival books? Because when the modern plumbing revolution arrived in the 20th century, turning on a tap was infinitely more convenient. Why build and maintain a fog catcher if you can simply open a tap and have unlimited water instantly? And in just 2 generations, practical knowledge simply disappeared because it was no longer relevant in a world of pipes and treatment plants. But the physics did not change. The principle still works exactly the same as it did 3,000 years ago, and now we are going to rebuild it from scratch. First, the mesh. And this is absolutely critical. You need shade mesh with a very tight weave, similar to a fine mosquito net, not a loose sports net. The key is the density of the weave. Each thread of the mesh is a surface where vapor can condense. The tighter it is, the more surface you have. If you use a loose net, the air passes without touching anything and does not condense. Look for mesh with at least 70 or 80% shade density. If you can see clearly through it, it is too loose. If barely any light passes through, it is perfect. It costs $5 for a 6 by 6 feet roll. Now the frame, 4 1-inch PVC pipes. Cut them to make a rectangle of 4 by 3 feet. You only need right angle corner connectors that cost 20 cents each. Frame cost? Now comes the number one mistake that kills 90% of projects. The mesh must be tight like a drum. If it is loose, if it has folds, water stagnates in those folds. The drops get trapped, they do not roll down. They stay there until the sun comes out and evaporate. You lose all your night production. Use zip ties every 15 minutes around the entire perimeter. Pull each one tight. The mesh should vibrate like a guitar string when you tap it. If it sinks more than half a centimeter when you press in the center, it is too loose. This step takes 15 minutes, but it determines whether you produce half a liter per night or 0. Now, the fatal mistake number 2. Never place this flat on the ground like a carpet. It must be inclined between 15 and 30 degrees. Why this specific angle? Gravity and droplet physics. Water droplets on the mesh need to roll down to fall into the gutter. If it is flat, they stay where they condensed and evaporate with the sun. If it is too vertical, the water runs so fast that it does not accumulate enough. It stays as a thin film that also evaporates. The optimal point is between 15 and 30 degrees. At that angle, droplets accumulate, gain weight, then roll and fall into the gutter. Use stacked bricks or lean it against something stable. The correct angle is literally everything in the system. Now, the collection gutter. A piece of plastic gutter from a hardware store, $4 for 2 meters. Place it at the bottom of the inclined frame. The gutter itself should have a slight lengthwise incline, one end lower, so that the water flows toward a single point where you place your container. Secure it with zip ties every 20 centimeters. Check that it has no leaks. A leak of 2 drops per minute is 100 milliliters lost per night. Now comes mistake number 3. Location. 3 critical factors can destroy your production. First, wind orientation. The mesh must face directly toward the direction of the prevailing wind. You need the air to pass through the mesh to hit it head-on. If the wind blows parallel, the air passes by without touching the fibers. Observe your location, where the night breeze comes from. On coasts, from the ocean and valleys, it comes down from the mountains. Place your collector perpendicular to that direction. Second factor, height above the ground, at least 30 centimeters, ideally 50. Air right at ground level is drier because it has lost moisture in contact with the warm ground from the day. Air at half a meter retains more vapor. Use an old table, stacked boxes, whatever works. That single change can double your production. Third factor, morning sun. Your collector must be placed where direct sunlight does not hit it during the first hours after sunrise. Why? You produce water between 10 at night and 7 in the morning. At 7, you have 200 or 300 milliamperes of droplets on the mesh that have not yet fallen. If the sun hits it directly at 7:15, it heats the mesh in minutes. The droplets begin to evaporate immediately. By 8, you have lost half back into the air. Look for location with morning shade, the north side of a building, under a tree, behind a fence, anything that delays direct sunlight until 9 or 10. This detail alone can triple your total production. Now the real results you can expect. On an average night without rain or visible fog, humidity of 60 to 70%, temperature of 10 degrees, this one ice collector produces 500 milliliters, half a liter of pure water from the air for free every night. In coastal areas where humidity is between 70 and 90%, those numbers double, 1 or 2 liters per night. In areas with regular morning fog, you can see 5 or 10 liters per night. Fog is 100% humidity, and your mesh captures it directly. Now, the obvious question, is it safe to drink? Atmospheric water is surprisingly clean. It does not touch the ground. It does not pass through rusty pipes or agricultural systems with pesticides. It is basically distilled water from the air with a bit of dust from the mesh. You need to filter it, but the process is simple. Take a 2-liter plastic bottle, cut off the bottom, turn it upside down like a funnel with the cap facing down. Make a small hole in the cap, fill the bottle with layers, cotton near the cap, 5 centimeters of crushed activated charcoal, 5 centimeters of clean sand, more cotton on top. Pour the collected water in from the top. It drips filtered through the cap. The activated charcoal absorbs chemicals from urban air. The sand traps particles. The cotton retains dust from the mesh. Result, clear drinking water. 5 minutes of work. Now let's talk about scaling this. 4 by 3 feet is your prototype. If you build one of 3 by 3 meters, you multiply your production by 7 or 8. That's 3 to 4 liters per night. Enough to cover the drinking water needs of a family. Completely free, completely off-grid. The materials for a large one cost 40. Same principle, tight mesh, correct inclination, wind orientation, just bigger. If you live in an area with regular fog, you can make multiple collectors in parallel. 3 panels of 2 by 2 meters, spaced 1 meter apart, can produce 10 or 15 liters per night. In Chile, there are community projects with fog catchers of 50 meter that produce 400 liters daily. They supply entire villages with mesh costing 5 per square meter and PVC pipes. Let me give you a specific real example. In the Atacama Desert in Chile, one of the driest places on the planet where it rains less than 1 millimeter per year, there are villages that have not seen rain in decades, but there is coastal fog from the Pacific. They installed giant fog catchers of 20 by 10 meters on the hills. They produce enough water to irrigate community gardens and provide drinking water to 100 families. In one of the driest deserts on Earth with Inca technology, shade mesh and gravity. And here is the beautiful part: zero maintenance. Once installed, it works by itself every night while you sleep. No electricity, no moving parts, no pumps that fail. Just check the gutter once a week to remove leaves. The mesh can last 5 or 10 years before degrading from the sun. When it wears out, you replace it for 5 minutes. The PVC frame lasts decades. The initial investment of 12 gives you thousands of liters over years. Let's be realistic about the limitations. This is not going to fill a pool or irrigate a golf course. It is a low-scale solution for basic drinking water needs. But in the right context, that is exactly what you need in emergency situations. After hurricanes, when the municipal supply is contaminated after earthquakes, when pipes are broken during prolonged blackouts. This collector keeps producing constantly. As long as there is atmosphere above your head, it produces water. In off-grid locations, remote cabins, desert camps, this can be your only reliable source. It does not depend on wells that dry up. It does not depend on tanker trucks. It does not depend on anything except basic physics. You can also combine it with rainwater collection. When it rains, the mesh captures additional rainwater. You produce much more on rainy days. It is a hybrid system. Another thing no one mentions: water quality in real emergencies. After a hurricane, tap water is contaminated with sewage. Wells are full of debris. Bottled water runs out in stores in 3 hours. People stand in line for 6 hours to receive 1 gallon of water from the government. But you, your fog catcher, keeps producing clean water every night without fail, without depending on anyone. And no one else in your neighborhood knows how to do it because they were never taught. The question is not whether it works. The Incas used it to supply cities for centuries. The people of the Negev lived from this for 3 millennia. The people of the Canary Islands still use it today. It works. That is not up for debate. The real question is, why did it stop being taught? And the answer is economic. They cannot sell you the air. They cannot put a meter on atmospheric humidity. They cannot charge you for condensation. There is no way to monetize basic physics that anyone can implement with, so they stopped mentioning it, they stopped including it in engineering curricula, and 2 generations later, almost no one knows that you can extract liters of drinking water from the air with a mesh of... But now you do know. You have the complete knowledge, you have the exact list of materials with real prices, you have the precise dimensions, you have the 3 critical mistakes you must avoid. You have the correct angle, the correct orientation, the correct height, $2 an afternoon, and infinite water as long as there is atmosphere above your head. The next time there is a supply outage, when your neighbors are buying packs of bottles for $10, you will have half a liter of clean water waiting for you every morning, and you will know that you made it yourself with your own hands using technology that the Incas mastered 500 years ago, and that worked perfectly for millennia. If you like this, share it, because this is exactly the kind of knowledge that needs to return to the hands of ordinary people. Not buried in academic papers that no one reads, not limited to NGO projects as if it were charity, but in your backyard, on your roof, in your off-grid location, producing real, measurable, drinkable water. Right now, see you in the next video, and check your collector every morning. M.